Hello, welcome back to Crafty Crandall. And I've got an exciting video for you today. I am doing my very first tag video, and what better tag to start off with than the Booktube Newbie tag. So I unfortunately could not find who the original creator or creators of this tag were. However, I watched several other videos, so I will link those down below in the description so that you can go and watch the ones that I watched. And that is where I derived these questions from. So if any of them are incorrect, I do apologize. Like I said, I could not find the original tag, so I just have a list of questions that other people have answered as part of this tag. Getting right into it, the first question that we have is, what are some fun and creative things that you can bring to BookTube? Now, I think that one of the obvious things is that as an artist, I feel like I can bring kind of an artistic spin to my BookTube videos. I would like to do several like mesh videos between art and BookTube. I want to do some, painting over my book covers, and I want to do some character design challenges and that sort of thing. So I think that's one area where I can kind of contribute to the BookTube community in a different way than it is already being contributed to. Also, I love penguins. I think that's kind of a fun and unique thing. And then just other than that, trying out new things as far as my editing is concerned. I use Procreate for a lot of my editing, so let me rephrase that. I use DaVinci Resolve for my editing. I use my iPad and Procreate to kind of create different transition scenes and kind of try to design more of my video elements. So trying to incorporate those artistic elements into my BookTube videos is how I feel like I will bring a creative spin to my channel and kind of add something to the BookTube community that isn't already being supplied elsewhere. The next question is, what are you excited about for your channel? So I am honestly just so excited that I have decided to take that first step and start doing this. I think that's really the stepping stone that everyone has to overcome when they're considering starting a channel, be that in BookTube or just any topic throughout all of YouTube. Taking that first step can be really scary. So I'm excited that I've done that and I'm here creating content. Whether it's good or bad content is up to you to decide, but I'm making stuff that makes me happy. And I'm excited to perpetuate that. I want to kind of push the boundaries as far as creativity goes with my videos, and I want to kind of see where I can take some of those more artistic elements and implement them into my BookTube content. The third question is, why do you love reading? Now, I feel like this answer kind of goes into a lot of different elements, but primarily I love reading because it quiets my mind. It gives me a space where I'm not being inundated with electronics and different stimuli. I am instead forcing my brain into a state in which it is coming up with those stimuli and it is determining what's happening. So I really appreciate reading for doing that, which I think is why I prefer to read mostly like novels and, fantasy stories, because those stories engage my mind in that way more. I feel more immersed into the story when I'm reading, a fantasy or even a contemporary novel rather than a piece of nonfiction. So really reading is just a way for me to escape reality, if you will, and it just gives me a way to use my brain in a different way, and I really appreciate it for that. The next question is, what book series got you into reading? Now, I just did a whole video on this, so I will link that above in the cards regarding the books of my formative years and how my reading has really been shaped by those books. So you can go ahead, go watch that if you're interested. I will just note here that that book series was most certainly Harry Potter. The next question is, what challenges will you face in starting your BookTube channel? Now, number one challenge was definitely figuring out how to edit videos. I have never been a video person. I have always been a very artistic person. I enjoy having a creative outlet and I appreciate that aspect of this. However, there is a huge learning curve for figuring out how to edit videos. I started off editing on my iPad using iMovie, And because I don't have a Mac computer, I found that it was just difficult to do that. So my first couple of videos you'll see on my channel were in fact edited on my iPad in iMovie, and whilst I think that really gave me the stepping stone to make my channel, which is fantastic, I have since graduated, if you will, to using DaVinci Resolve on my computer so that I can just produce higher quality content. I can, you know, have better edits. I think that iMovie for the iPad specifically is really limited. Now, that's not to say that the desktop version is limited like that. I mean, I've seen, you know, tutorials and everything using the desktop version, and it does have a lot more functionality. I am just not going to drop $1,200 on a laptop so that I can make YouTube videos when I already have a very good laptop that I bought for creating art in Photoshop. So I am now using my laptop to edit videos, and again, there's a huge learning curve with that. So I think that is really one of my most difficult challenges to overcome. Once I've figured the editing out, as far as challenges go, my output of reading is not as high as any other booktuber that I've watched. So I think that my primary challenge will be getting enough reading in to supply content, which is why my channel is dual focused. I realize that that's not like a good YouTube strategy to have like a dual focus channel, but for me in producing content for the fun of it, I really needed kind of a dual focus to be able to provide content on both niches without running out of things to say, because I don't read very fast and I don't read, you know, as much as everyone else is. I mean, I see people with Goodreads goals of like 50 to 100 books per year. My Goodreads goal is 25. If I can get, you know, 2 books a month in, I feel really good about that. So that will be a more like practical hurdle that I need to overcome as far as creating content while only consuming the number of books that I typically consume, because I have a finite amount of time in the day like everyone else does, and I want to use that time in pursuing all of my different creative avenues. I don't want to be just limited to one. So that is more of a practical booktube type challenge that I'm going to be facing. The next question is kind of a fun one. It's, where do you read? Well, I read pretty much everywhere. Every single night I do read, you know, before bed, in bed. But beyond that, I love going to the lake. I will go to the lake and I will bring a book and I will just sit there and read and listen to the sounds of the lake water. And I absolutely love doing that. It is so peaceful, and I highly recommend, if you can find a body of water to go read next to, go for it, because there is nothing more peaceful than that. I also love to read. I've got a little reading chair. I'll cut away and show you my reading chair in my house. It's got my Slytherin pillow and my Harry Potter blanket, and it's just a really cozy little place to read. I tend to read there more in the winter though, because my heater is right there, and it's just so cozy in the winter to curl up there, grab, you know, a cup of coffee, start reading, and it's just great. The next question is, when did you start reading? So I started reading at around the age of 10. I picked up Harry Potter at around that time, and that's what really jump-started me into more serious personal reading. Now, obviously, I had been required to read prior to that. I tried to read some of like the Magic Treehouse books when I was a kid, and I just didn't like reading as a kid. I was always told in school that I wasn't a good reader. I got put in the remedial reading group in 3rd grade. And then in 4th grade, oddly, I think because of the rest of my like academic success, if you will, I think that they thought that I was a better reader than I was. So they put me into like the regular kids reading group, and then they had to demote me because I just wasn't a good reader. So I got put in, again, like the remedial reading section. So definitely prior to the age of 10, I was not interested in reading like at all. And then Harry Potter came around. Like I said in my formative years video, I tried to read it. It didn't work so well. And then a couple years later, I actually did like pick it up and read it. So definitely around 10, maybe like later into my 10th year, so like 10 and a half, but around that year. And the final question is, what types of books do you like to read? So prior to this year, I would say that I read mostly either contemporary fiction or fantasy books. Now those could be either young adult or adult. I don't really pay attention to that when I'm reading. I always, whenever I'm at a bookstore, I always browse both sections to see, you know, if anything catches my eye. So I don't really care so much about that. However, this year I have been so into reading science fiction. So now I would say that I'm almost more of like a science fiction fantasy reader, and I've read a lot less contemporary fiction than normal. I don't know if that's just because nothing has been released lately that I want to read, or if I'm just like at a place in my life where I'm straying away from reading contemporary fiction. So right now I would say mostly science fiction and fantasy. I don't like urban fantasy. Urban fantasy bugs me. I tried to read some, like I don't read any of the Shadowhunter books. I used to try to read some of the Patricia Briggs books, but I just, even though the setting was Atlanta and like I'm familiar with Atlanta, I just have a tough time with urban fantasy. Part of me really likes being, you know, familiar with the setting, and part of me really dislikes it because I feel like it almost pulls you out of the story, and you'll read about something that you're familiar with and then immediately your brain will stray to thoughts of that place and like why you are familiar with it, and you completely, you know, when you're reading sentences and you're not really absorbing them into your brain, like I'll get through 3 pages and I won't have a clue what's gone on because my brain was like back at the Georgia Aquarium, you know, looking at the penguins. So I don't like urban fantasy for that reason. If it's an urban fantasy about a place that I've never been and I don't really have any like inclination to go there, that might be better. But for the most part, if it's urban fantasy in a setting that I'm familiar with, I don't tend to jive with those books. And also high fantasy can be a little bit difficult, but for the most part, I've done okay with the ones that I have read. So, you know, I would just say fantasy and sci-fi in general. And then, you know, throughout the course of my BookTube career, you will probably see and learn, you know, my book tastes better than I will myself. So that's all I have for this tag. Thank you guys so much for watching. Feel free to leave me any other questions down below in the comments. Let me know what you thought of my answers, and feel free, if you are new to BookTube, do this tag, and I would absolutely love to watch your video. I love watching tag videos of all kinds, so I'm excited to have done my first one, and I would really appreciate it if you would give it a like if you liked it, and subscribe to my channel down below in addition to leaving that comment down below. Thank you guys so much. Have a good one. Bye.